Last time, in the Grand Marquis at Ulan's Gate, we left our party clambering out of a pit trap, leaving one fighting type behind and one fighting type injured, wondering what to do next. Knowing, however, that there was a chance for a secret exit to the room they were in. Not having any bookkeeping to do, apart from resetting our marching order, the two clerics, unharmed and heavily armored, will take point, and Prax will step in behind. While still armored, he is 1 point of damage away from the same fate as his dwarven friend. Taking half of a turn to redistribute the dwarf's belongings, they won't do anyone any good at the bottom of that pit. The party can dive right back into the delve. Playing a little bit on my lunch break today, so hopefully you guys will give me the benefit of the doubt if there's a little bit of noise. But having spent half of a turn to redistribute that gear, we move on to our possible secret. For each 10 feet of wall space, a D12 is indicated. So let's go ahead and do that. First, we will check the... Let's see, I have 5 party members, so I will... Should we search 5 at a time? Now we'll see. We'll do 4. We will have Ovamore stand guard and hold a torch or something near the door in case of a wandering monster, and we'll have the rest of the party searching. First to the north and south of the room. Found it. Next up, we will do a quick listen. So we will hear if something is there, but what is in that room? There will not be anything to hear. So we can go ahead and force the door. We get it on our first try, and as we move into this secret area, we will take a note to correctly utilize a piece of inventory. While redistributing from our dwarfish friend, whose name is already forgotten to memory, multiple members of the party have 10-foot poles. So our leads, Agram Whitehand and Olivemore the Consumptive, will both be tapping to potentially catch some of those traps in the future. There's no guidance specifically on how those work. However, what I will do when we move into a trapped area, I will treat the poles as the first rank, giving a chance to activate the trap. If the trap activates on the pole, then the character will be unharmed. Now, what is beyond this door? Passage, 45 degrees. And it will continue for 30 feet, where I will check again. 30 feet, bringing us into contact with room number 8. We will possibly have a secret or one-way door to get into room number 8, but that will depend. I would say that would depend, but instead let's just go for it. Yep, secret door. So, a secret we didn't find before, and a way to get into and out of the space. Crafty. Gathering up our supplies, we wouldn't want to waste spikes on an area we've already explored. We will continue back towards our destination. We've been moving for 30 feet, so 40, 50, 60 brings us back to hallway number 7. Mark a turn, but in that we are moving through a mapped area, we could potentially move at a faster pace. In flight or pursuit situations, our movement rate is doubled, so we will double our way back to room 2, 140 feet. We will round up to a full turn and a half of double movement to represent retrieving the spike we had left on the original secret door. Had it slipped as a curiosity? Nope, held firm. Our torch begins to sputter, and we are at the top of our rest period, so let's take a turn to rest and light up a new one, marking on our turn tracker. The last time we were here, we had listened to these doors, and we had heard something on the other side for both. Now, are those things still there, or were they transient in the night? We'll spend part of a turn listening, just in case. If they're still there, we will know. Oh, as a side, before I forget, during the rest period, because we had recovered some items from our unfortunate companion, specifically, we had recovered his crossbow. The crossbow has an encumbrance cost, so I've updated Prax to be carrying 2 weapons, and I have bumped his coin encumbrance accordingly. It's easier, while some will check right away, it is easier to check every rest period and just say it caught up to you at the rest. Now, are they still there to listen? To accomplish this, I'm simply going to re-roll the contents. If I get a monster again, then the monsters are still there. If I don't, then I don't. Aha, they are still present. And interestingly, got the exact same results as last time, albeit I think with different numbers. This presents us with a bit of a conundrum, knowing that there are monsters in both options, but if we engage one, the other will be alerted. If they know one another, then we'll be surrounded. I think the smart move is to spike closed one of the doors and kick open the other. See what's on the other side. High-low will do, because I know that there's treasure in the south room, but the party would not. High-low, they go north or south. Low. So we will go through the south door and we will spike the north door, giving the occupants a decent chance to hear us doing it. Specifically, checking for surprise. If they are surprised, they won't know they've been locked in. Next, let's check out what's on the other side of these 2 doors. We'll do north, south, red, and white. Parallel passages, or room if the door is straight ahead. That makes sense, because the south door we will recall has a treasure in it, and the north door simply has a monster. Perhaps it's on lookout duty from something further in. We will have Prax spike the door, and we will have our wizard types force the door, and that will leave our fighting clerics ready to confront whatever's inside. Uh-oh. The door stands firm, and whatever's on the other side knows we're trying to get in. The next thing to do, I think, will be to determine the creature we're dealing with. Page 8 and 9 provide for wandering monsters, and we will use that to determine what's inside this room. We have a level 1 monster, kobolds. So, we have our kobolds in the lower room. What do we have in the upper? Ghouls. So, we did make noise as we attempted to open the door. The kobolds will not be surprised, but we will have to find out how they feel about us. The reaction table is given for when we're unsure of what to do, but it doesn't mean we can't use it to determine their initial reaction to potentially a perceived attack. Interesting. We will have to figure out what that means later, but first, do the ghouls know that we are in room 2? They are not surprised, so they know something is going on. And they are ambivalent about it. Ghouls being naturally evil creatures, it makes sense that they would intend to slink in and finish off whomever the victor may be, or perhaps devour the loser at the end of the combat. But they're also intelligent, so it makes sense for them to wait a round or two, listening for sounds of anguish before they make their move. Turning back to the kobolds, the kobold monster entry indicates 10 times 4d10 kobolds should be encountered at a time. Now, note that this number reflects in layer. This is the kind of kobold that you would find in the wilderness when you were when you stumbled into a hive of the little guys. Instead, knowing that we are on the first level of the dungeon near the beginning, is this their lair? It's a 50-50 shot. It is not, and they have rolled an extremely positive reaction, almost ecstatic. There's an idea. Let's try the door a second time. Continuing to fail, but from the inside, a small voice, almost yapping in its demeanor, speaks. Do I know kobold? I do. Prax speaks the language, barking through the door. We have it barred from the inside, eaters of flesh. You'll never come through, you'll never have us before our king returns. We are no flesh eaters. To whom do we speak? Through the continuing exchange, we find that our kobolds have been forced into this room by the ghouls in the further room, seeking to prey upon them, and they have spiked the door and are hiding within. If the party will help the kobolds escape, the kobolds knowing where their lair is, then they will surrender the treasure that's within. Truly, life is more important than gold, and they will have earned the favor of the kobolds in this warren. How many ghouls are creeping? 10 of them. I would be afraid too. But we never determined how many kobolds we had. Again, it doesn't really make sense for even 10 kobolds to be in this 10 by 10 space, so this has to be an this has to be like an out patrol of a larger group. So I'll roll their number normally on 4d10, and then we will proportionalize it based on our party level. That's something that's hinted at in the book. We want to make sure encounters are vaguely proportional. They come from a tribe of about 150, so smaller than average, but still a formidable group, having taken up residence in the Grand Marquis. Because it is a smaller than average group, and our group is of standard size, we'll say there are 2d10 total kobolds in this patrol. 10 kobolds total, hiding from the ghouls, which I would too if I only had half of a die for the accumulation of damage. I've marked off half of a turn on the turn tracker to represent our conversation, so I figure now is probably a good time for the ghouls to check in. I had been planning, if we were fighting the kobolds, to do a reaction roll each combat round, and on a negative reaction to have them come in, but we didn't fight them, we made friends. And so now we'll fiat and say, the ghouls try the door. Normally, monsters, having figured out the tricks and secrets of the doors, don't roll to force them, but because we have a spike, and spikes do have a chance to slip, I'm going to have the ghouls attempt to force the door. The first one fails, not expecting there to be resistance, I guess. But that gives our team a chance to act, to plan, and I think they will. Knowing that the ghouls are 10 in number, knowing that at least the ghouls are of sufficient number to have forced the kobolds out, a plan might be hatched. The kobolds could challenge them with the party hiding in the kobold room, allow the ghouls in with a sense of hubris, and then come out, crosses bared, and turn them away, making shorter work of those that remain. A risky plan, yes, as ghouls are a powerful undead compared to a first-level cleric. But we have the advantage of numbers, and we have the advantage of our high reaction from the kobolds, who must be desperate. Now, the players will go along with it because it's their idea, but the kobolds will probably want to test their discipline. Morale in the Ode to 74 is broken into 3 bits. The press value, which is weight against a unit, so that will not apply. Instability, the propensity of a character to flee, or discipline, the capacity of a character or group to stand firm in the face of adversity. As a light creature, the kobolds would have an instability of 8 and a discipline of 9. We'll give them a +1 to the roll because of their 11 reaction, and they're down for it. So, into the room we go, and we will spring our trap. For combat, I will be using the move-counter-move system. However, in the current context, I don't necessarily think initiative is necessary, in that the kobolds will unplug the door, jeer at the ghouls, and inspire them to come in. So, let me grab a little representation of the room. You don't need it, but for the intrigue factor, we have our doors 1 through 4, where 3 will lead down towards the previous chunk of the dungeon. 2 will be where our party is. Ghouls are coming in from number 1. And then 4, of course, leads back to the entrance to the dungeon. So first things first, the ghouls will enter and engage with the kobolds, who are set to receive the charge. neither side is surprised, but neither side is flanked or anything like that, any other considerations. The kobolds have 1/2 of a die for the accumulation of damage. I'm just going to call those dads from now on. The kobolds have 1/2 of a dad, and the ghouls have 2 each. The type for the ghouls is light, +1, whereas the kobolds fight as light. Both are infantry, so light on light, they will receive 1 die per man. Though, before we continue, to address a couple key elephants in the room, I'm aware that in a proper chainmail battle, you use figure scale. If I had 20 kobolds, I would receive 1 die. If I had 20 ghouls, I would receive 1 die. We're not playing at exact figure scale, but instead we are using the Ode to 74 rule set, which specifies individuals. We are in the dungeon, we're rolling dice as monsters. Further, yes, I am not using a particularly famous alternative combat system. I've been told in no uncertain terms on more than one occasion that when playing the original D&D game, no one used chainmail. No one bought chainmail. Chainmail wasn't around. In other terms, more recently, I was told, quote, OSR go f*** yourself. Now, again, I don't care if you use the alternative combat system. If it makes you happy, go play your game. I am playing mine. I don't care how people played in the past. I want to play the way I am playing in the present. So, with that out of the way, we'll continue with our fight. First, we'll have the kobolds roll. Looking for 6s. Kobolds fighting like demons there, getting 4 hits for a total of 9 points of damage. Combat being simultaneous, we will roll the ghouls next with 2 dice each to correspond to their dad. Now, did I specify that in the rules? No, I did not, so let's fix that. They are at +1, but the +1 only applies to the highest die. So I have 20 dice to roll. This first set will have +1s, looking for 5s. Respectable. 3 hits. And looking for 6s. Oh heavens. Why couldn't I have rolled this well when I was rolling damage thresholds? That will bring them to 10 hits total. The kobolds are going to need our party sooner than we may have thought. Now to roll for damage. That'll be 10, 20, 30, 34, 36, 37. Things are not looking good for those kobolds. Maybe this wasn't the best plan. In terms of casualties, we will do the ghouls first. Having 2 dice for the accumulation of damage, we are instructed to remove whole figures where possible. So our first ghoul, 6. So we have 3 spillover damage. Also 6. So we have 1 ghoul who is wounded, and 1 ghoul who has been slain. For the kobolds, they have 1/2 of a die, so I will roll a d3 until I run out of damage. Or kobolds. starting at 37, 35, 32, 29. You know what, I'm just going to count these down myself and ask you to trust me. Unfortunately, I appear to have run out of kobolds. Between the 10 of them, the kobolds had a damage threshold combined of 19. However, the ghouls, in their assault, dealt a total of 36 points of damage. In retrospect, knowing that a kobold has half of a dad, and therefore 10 of them can have at maximum a damage threshold of 30, 36 points of damage would have killed all of them, and I could have saved myself some trouble. But live and learn. So, in the following round, our party will have no allies, which presents an interesting thought. The magic user's spells will be useless against the ghouls. The fighting men will have a bit of an advantage. Wearing plate, they are armored, meaning that the 10 dice, or 20 dice, to which the ghouls would normally be entitled are instead reduced to 7. So likely only 1 hit per turn, and in contrast, attacking as armored or heavy with the lucerne hammer or mace respectively, they would only need 4s and 5s to hit themselves. But 3 dice on 4s and 5s versus 7 dice on 6s, we'll have to think about it, because if we open the door and lure them in, they will only be able to fight 3 abreast. So that's a difficult question to answer. So, should the party hide, allow the ghouls their meal, and hope they move on? Or should they engage, avenge their erstwhile allies? While that does seem the lawful thing to do, and we have an abundance of lawful creatures, we also have the horror factor, and truthfully, kobolds aren't exactly angelic beings. So let's test morale as armored to help us make that decision. That is not gonna do it. So our party waits, the sickening crunch of bone and gristle filling the chamber. Which direction do the ghouls exit? They will, it's probably more apt that they will leave the way they came. So we roll a 6-sided die. 1, they will head towards the exit. 2, 3, they will head towards the party. And 4 up, they will head off down the hall. 4. They head off down the hall. And there ends our first combat. Our party huddling in horrified silence as erstwhile allies have taken the brunt of the undead hunger. But our act of cowardice concluded, we have just enough time left in this episode to end on a high note. We are hiding among the treasure. Checking the treasure table, we have 2 columns, one without monster and one with. There was a monster in this room, and as such we are told to use the monster treasure entry. kobolds having 1d6 gold pieces each, that sucks. So I'm going to use both. First, for our kobolds, that will be 36 gold pieces among them. And next to determine what was in the room to begin with. 750 electrum pieces per level. We are on level 1, so there's some easy math. Concluding tonight, we will distribute the treasure among our waiting empty sacks, adjust our encumbrance, mark a turn for the combat, half a turn to gather up the treasure, and then one more turn to rest, resetting our fatigue counter and debating a paltry sum. Have we? Does the party delve deeper, having exhausted very few additional resources, or do we cut our losses and run? And will the referee give us credit for those monsters defeated for the purposes of experience? Find out next episode of The Grand Marquis